Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Poppin Politics. I'm your host, Forget About It. My co-host, DJ King Majesty, has a day off, so it'll just be you and me today. With that, I want to start the show off today in light of a few things that have happened over the last week as it pertains to campaign 2024. And I'll state it by starting with this. Um, at no time during my lifetime, to my recollection, have I ever seen a candidate at the top of a major ticket spew the type of rhetoric that I've heard from Donald Trump? It's one thing for the phrases and words that we've heard come from surrogates, from supporters, things along those lines. But, for someone who's seeking the highest office in the world to carry themselves in that fashion is totally unacceptable. Um, and then on top of that, for the person running on the vice presidential ticket to dismiss hateful rhetoric, blatantly hateful rhetoric, as something that people are being too sensitive about. Um, to kind of phrase it the way that he did, I believe, and I'll paraphrase a bit, but America is soft. We need to toughen up. So I guess he's saying that we just need to ignore hateful rhetoric, whether it's racial, hateful rhetoric, misogynistic, hateful rhetoric, or whatever the case may be. But when you have the two folks at the top of a major ticket speaking like that, it makes you take a step back and really try to understand exactly where we are as a country. But to offend such a large swath of people, Americans for that matter, just days before the election, it just baffles me. And then on top of that, to double down on it and not really give too much of a care about what was stated and how it was stated. And let me also state that I don't dislike the Republican Party. And as I've stated before on previous episodes, there are certain aspects of the Republican platform that I actually do like, that I think actually could and would benefit my community. But with that, I don't like the character of Donald Trump, and I just got to come out and say it. Again, to to carry himself for a man to carry himself the way that he does, to disparage women in the way that he does, to disparage people in general in the manner that he does, is just is reprehensible. And from my standpoint, it's unacceptable. And again, from my perspective, it disqualifies you from being able to hold the most powerful office in the world. Um, if you think about it, the politicians that actually support Donald Trump are those that are either already in office or those who are seeking office. And with that, they fear the wrath of Donald Trump. That's the primary reason why they support him. They don't like him as a person. I'd be willing to bet money on that. But they fear him because again, they're looking all to seek the same thing, which is a seat, which is in essence power in the political space. And it's pretty sad, when you see grown men on TV trying to justify the way that this individual carries himself and the things that he states and the things that people in his orbit also state, and then to watch them try to justify it, it's almost laughable if it wasn't, as sad as it was. Um, I think is at this point, especially given in light of what was stated this last Sunday at Madison Square Garden at the Trump rally, it's time for folks to really mobilize. It's time for the African American community to mobilize, the Latino community to mobilize, the Asian community, the Jewish community, any community that they touched on Sunday with regard to that hateful rhetoric. it's time for us to mobilize and really see what's going on and how folks really feel about you. Um, at the end of the day, had he come out, meaning Trump, and apologized or even acknowledged the hateful speech rather that was given that day, um, it would have made a difference. But for only the campaign, in essence, to come out and try to separate themselves from that, but he didn't say anything for a couple of days. And then when he finally did, it was, oh, I didn't know that guy. I didn't know who was on stage. That in itself gives several question marks because here you are at the top of the ticket and you don't know who's going on the stage that's supposed to represent you is again a huge question mark from my standpoint. So with that, um, we need to mobilize. We need to make sure that we're telling our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors to go out and vote. And it's imperative we get out there and we vote. I see on TV and I hear on the radio, Latinos from across the country mobilizing and going out there and getting the word out because they also, I think, at this point understand that beyond any economic pluses that they feel that Donald Trump brought to the table, which again, that's a question mark in itself. But it doesn't measure up or shouldn't I would say, I guess, overshadow the hateful speak that we heard the other day. Um, because again, if you really take a big look at if you take a look at the bigger picture, not until, at least from my standpoint, not until Donald Trump came into the political arena almost 10 years ago, did we as a country start to see the antics that we now have, sadly become used to. The name calling of the different of different candidates, just just the blatant disregard for having any type of decorum. Um, our elected officials at one time, good, bad, or indifferent, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, they still had a level of decorum about themselves. There's a certain way that they carried themselves. If they didn't like somebody from the other side of the aisle, you may have known that, but there was no name calling. It just what's going on today in politics, it's made it, pretty much, for lack of a better phrase, a shit show. It's made it quite laughable. And again, I can't even say hardly laughable because it's almost sad that the elected leaders of our country at this point um, conduct themselves in the way that they do. Um, and Donald Trump being at the top of that mountain. And so with that, um, it's he's brought a level of confusion to the electorate that wasn't there before. And it's time for us as a people, as citizens of this country, the country that we love, to step up and and vote the right way. Again, at this point, it isn't about party. It's beyond that. Because the person at the top of one of the tickets, he can't get into office. We have to get out there, we have to vote. We have to tell everybody that we know to vote. Um, because me, myself, being a Marine, I'm all about respecting the commander in chief, etc. But at the same token, anybody who is asking for respect first needs to be worthy of that respect. A title in itself does not give you respect. So with that said, um, speaking as a Marine, that that individual does not deserve to be in the Oval Office and be commander in chief. Um, to become president of the United States, it's an earned seat. It's an earned office. It's from a political and governmental perspective, it's the greatest honor, and few and far between have been able to hold that office. And again, you may not have agreed with everyone who held that office or liked them from a policy perspective, but with that said, um, they respected the office. And with that, I don't see Donald Trump having a great deal of respect, not only for that office, but for our Constitution, for the people of this country, in general. And so with that, again, we must mobilize and we must get out there and vote. If you've already voted, great. If you haven't, make sure you do. And like I said, you tell everybody you know to get out there and vote. And also encourage the people out there that you know to not follow the clickbait on social media. Do their due diligence, do their research, and really go to respected sources of information because there's a lot of clickbait out there. I had a discussion with somebody the other day, actually yesterday, and they have this notion of Donald Trump that I had to debunk during the course of a conversation. Um, and it took a lot of talking. And I don't even still think that I was able to get through to this person. But with that said, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And a lot of folks that are stating they support Donald Trump, they are supporting him rather, based on information they found on social media and just things that just aren't true. If they were true, hey, I definitely would state that it was, but the information that they're relaying to me and repeating back to me is just false. Again, I don't put myself in the bucket of being a Democrat or being a Republican or being an independent. I may vote one way or the other for any given election, but at the beginning of and the end of any given day, I'm an American and I'm a Marine and I vote for the best person in any particular race to make sure that they're going to get in there and do their job and take care of the American people. And again, in this particular race, that person is not Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination. So with that, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we have election day on Tuesday, November 5th, coming up here in about 5 days. And it's going to be interesting to say the least over the course of the next few days to see what happens. Over the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Um, it's going to be crazy because once we have a lead up to the election, we have election day, and then we're going to have the fallout from that election, regardless of whatever side wins. There's going to be a fallout, whether that be lawsuits, whether that be protest, whatever the case may be. God forbid, violence. Hopefully, there won't be any violence this time around. But to I guess go back and use some words from Donald Trump. Uh, Stand by because it's going to be an interesting 2 or 3 weeks. With that said, going to go ahead and get into the crux of the show and get off my soapbox here for a minute. But Sunday's rally at Madison Square Garden was, I won't say eye-opening because it wasn't anything that we hadn't heard previously for the most part, but at the same token, it really was. I thought we had heard everything we could hear from those in the orbit of Donald Trump. And on Sunday, they took it to a whole other level. The disrespect to Vice President Kamala Harris, the disrespect to Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, and just the different uh, races that they disrespected that day was all I can do is just shake my head because again, I never thought that I would see that again in our politics. Because here in the United States, we hold ourselves to a higher standard, at least we did at one time, than the rest of the world. These are things that we typically would see in other countries where they had the level of disrespect that we see today. And so with that, hopefully after this election, we can get back or at least start to work back towards a level of decorum in our politics and amongst our elected officials and just kind of get rid of you know, for lack of a better phrase, just I hate to even use the word because it's been used so many times in the last few days. But let's take the trash out and get rid of the garbage and stop the nonsense and get back to what they're supposed to be doing, which is legislating. And get rid of the name calling, get rid of just the BS. So with that, um, also on Sunday, Kamala Harris gave a great speech on the ellipse in Washington, D.C. And I want to say they said they had over 75,000 people, which is spectacular. Um, but during that speech, President Biden also did an interview, a virtual call. And on that virtual call, he referred to Trump supporters as garbage or trash. And that wasn't cool because I'll condemn it on both sides of the piece. It was wrong for the folks that are around Trump to say what they said, but it was also wrong for Joe Biden to say what he said. He did come back after the fact to try to clean it up, but it should not have been stated to begin with. We can't, you know, throw rocks at a glass house. If you are expecting a certain level of decorum from the other side of the aisle, you must also hold yourself to that same standard. And, because with that, you allow them to basically start playing games. And we have to get away from that completely. So I'm hopeful that they will keep Joe Biden off the campaign trail for the remainder of the race and just keep him somewhere where he can't do much more damage. Because again, he's been known to say a thing or two out of the way, during the duration of his career over the last 44 years or so. And so with that, we had another instance of Joe Biden doing a Joe Biden. But as of right now, things are so critical to where we can't afford that. We can't afford those types of missteps. We have to run a clean race and leave leave the nonsense to other people. Um, Other than that, I've been really impressed to see the level of support around Kamala Harris, even prior to Sunday. The level of celebrity rapport with the different celebrities, whether they be Republican, Democrat, etc. Today, Arnold Schwarzenegger, former Republican governor of California, endorsed Kamala Harris because even he at this point is he's fed up, like a lot of us are, with just the negativity from the other side. And what I'm seeing today, what we're seeing today, isn't America. America is far from perfect, but this definitely isn't who we are as a nation, as far as this clown show that our political environment has turned into over the last 8, 9 years since Donald Trump came down that escalator in Trump Tower. And again, folks, I don't want to disrespect anyone's um I guess for lack of a better phrase, I don't want to disrespect anyone in their choice as far as who they're looking to vote for by any stretch of the imagination. But to me, character is huge. Not, just in life in general, let alone for the highest office of the land. And when someone's character lacks so much, especially when they're looking to seek the highest office in the land, you have to speak up on it. To sit silent would just make me complicit. And that's something that I can't be and I won't do and I won't be. I have to speak on it because we can't allow our country to go down that road. We can't allow someone to hold that office that has such blatant disregard for others. We need someone in that office who's going to look out for the citizens of this country and move us in a direction where we need to be from a unification perspective, because we're better unified than we are divided as a country. And with the state of the world being what it is today, and it's no one's fault. Um, People want to say, if Trump says if he was in office, there wouldn't be this war in Israel, there wouldn't be the war in the Ukraine, etc. These are all sovereign countries that are currently embattled in, you know, in different wars and conflicts. These are sovereign countries. They're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. We can have influence, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to. As much talking to as the U.S. has done with Israel, they're doing what they want to do, and they're doing what they feel they have to do to defend themselves. The same with the Ukraine situation is a bit different, but um, with that said, we have to make sure that as our country is concerned, as far as the U.S., as far as America, that we're unified as much as possible because there are those that are outside of the US that are trying to divide us with the clickbait they put on social media and the different things that go on behind the scenes. There are entities out there that want to see us as a country divided, and we can't allow that. No matter how hard they try, we have to fight that much harder to make sure that we keep ourselves together as a country. And at the end of the day, realize that we're all Americans. Whether you black, white, Latino, whatever the case may be, we're all Americans. And very few of us uh, were or have ancestors rather that were born and raised here. Some of us have several generations of people that are from here, but a good number of folks here in the U.S. and in America that are our Americans, their ancestors came from elsewhere. So America has always been and will always be a melting pot of different cultures, and that's part of what makes us great as a nation, are the different cultures, different ethnicities, the different experiences that we all bring to the table. That's what makes us great, and that's what the rest of the world really envies about us. Is again us being a melting pot, this pot of cultures that can come together and live and succeed and just you know, again, we have to make sure that we stick together as a nation. Um, in addition to that, I'm really proud and happy to see the mobilization of the Latino and the Puerto Rican community since Sunday. The interviews that I've seen on TV and heard on the radio, the people that I've spoken to, I'm really hopeful that that turns the tide as far as closing the gap, and also greatens the gap between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and puts her over the top, hopefully, on election day, because they were not happy by any stretch of the imagination with what was said about them and their community and their home being Puerto Rico and Latin America as well on Sunday. So I'm really hopeful that, again, they take that energy that they're feeling from Sunday and they take it and they put it in that voting booth and they cast their ballot in the right direction. Again, the objective being we need to move forward as a country together and and not separate. What do I expect after the election? It's going to be interesting. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. My initial thought is it's going to be somewhat of a repeat of what we saw back in 2020. That, you know, regardless of who wins, I believe that there are going to probably be some disputes, some protests potentially, et cetera. Hopefully no conflict from a violence perspective, as I mentioned before. But I'm sure there are going to be lawsuits, so on and so forth. But I don't think that we're going to really know exactly who won this election, probably for a couple to a few days after the fact. Unless those numbers are just that convincing, I don't see us really knowing who won that election, at least probably till the end of next week. I just, again, we're really in unprecedented times when it comes to our electorate and the way things are kind of going. I don't think anyone can really say for certain who's going to win this race. We can say who we hope will win, but I don't think anybody knows definitely. It really is at this point a toss up. Why it's so close, I don't know. But as we've stated in previous episodes, um, again, I think that a lot of it is just based on false information with regard to the other side of the aisle. But at the end of the day, again, I hope everything remains civil regardless of who wins, and that as a country we can come together and just really come together as a country and move forward as a country, as one, because it's it's imperative that we do. Because if we don't, we're going to be in some big trouble. Because again, it's a lot of entities out there outside of the U.S. trying to divide us and tear us apart, to benefit them. And so with that, it's imperative we do stay together as a country. Um, in closing, what I do want to say is that it's really important, I think more than ever. I think every 4 years you hear these radio talk show hosts, whether it be left wing, right wing, saying, especially ever since Barack Obama ran, this is the election of our lifetime. Um, this is the biggest election that we're ever going to see, that we've seen. I can't express it enough that it really is very important. I can't say it's the biggest of our lifetime, but it's probably the biggest of my lifetime, to be honest. Um, it's just it's apples and oranges with regard to the choices that we have to choose from as far as becoming president. Um, it's really a chess game when once you add in the congressional component of it, the down ticket folks running for Senate, running for Congress, so on and so forth. Um, Not even going down to the state level, but just even but on the federal level more than anything else. And I've made comments here and there, and I've had my thoughts on the down tickets over the years, but I think now more than ever, it's really imperative that we really get out there and we vote. There are some statements that came out the other day, or some video that came out showing Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, doing some type of a rally or holding a meeting, and they made statements that they want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act within the first 100 days of Donald Trump taking office. We have over, I think, 50 plus million people that benefit from the Affordable Care Act. And to get rid of it with nothing to replace it would mean off the top that folks who had pre-existing conditions would lose their insurance. Children who have been allowed rather to stay on their parents' insurance until the age of 26, that would go away. And that affects me because my son, he's 25. He's been on he has another year to go, but he's on my insurance. So that affects me personally. So that's just a couple of things that would be negatively affected if they were to take away the Affordable Care Act. So there's a lot at stake. There's the women's right to choose at stake at this point. There's a lot on the table. So it's really, really important. I can't stress it enough that we get out there and we express ourselves through the vote. Don't get out there and protest violently, things to that extent. Protest through your vote. Use your vote to speak for you. That speaks volumes, your vote. And so with that, I I ask everyone to get out there and vote. I can't say it enough. Tell your friends, tell your family. This is not the time to sit out. Some folks want to use what they're considering to be a protest vote and not vote for anybody at all. This is not the time to do that because a non-vote is a vote for the other side. And so with that, it's really important you get out there and you vote. This show as a whole, we don't endorse any particular candidate. But again, I've expressed that based on the things that have been said and done during the course of this election, I know who I'm voting for, and it isn't Donald Trump. Um, it's just really important that we make the right decision with this one. So with that, Poppin Politics will be on next Wednesday. I'm sorry, we will be in next week after the election, rather. We may do a special show the day of the election. We'll see what we can put together. But with that said, um, vote, vote, vote. And with that, forget about it. I'm gonna sign off for DJ King Majesty, who's out today. And everybody stay safe. And we'll see you at the ballot box. And peace. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Poppin Politics.